Hello everybody, this is 12 Strings. I am on my Mage, and my Thursday night group that I run along with occasionally Sunday afternoons has added one more player. So we're now up to a full complement of 6 people who get together and tackle group content together. The newest person to join is a Mage. He also plays other classes. I believe he plays a Shaman also, but for our group last Thursday, it was as a Mage, and he asked me some questions about my setup, and I said I would do a video to explain that. This is how I play a Mage. It is definitely not the only way to play a Mage. It's not the only way to set it up. It is something that works for me. So let's start kind of at the beginning. Talk about, well, you can see my setup there, and talk about some of the gear I use so you understand what I'm doing as I go. One is the Glyph Wielder's Tunic of the Summoner. That's the Anguish robe. It's definitely not necessary to get. It's not life-changing, unlike, for instance, the Necro version, which is, I would argue, mandatory. This is just a little bump. Every 5 minutes, you can give yourself a minute of infusion. I say a minute because with the extensions, it lasts a minute. And that infusion increases the hit damage that your pet does by 50%, and it decreases the hit damage taken by 15%. So 20% of the time, your pet will take less damage. That, to me, is the key factor, and it will also do a little bit extra damage. So it's worth getting. It's a little bump. Cast Companion's Assault. Okay, so the next thing is your basic robe. In this case, depending on what robe you get, will depend on how big this is, but every 10 minutes, you can do Zeal of the Elements, and that lets you cast Companion's Assault, which will, for 8 hit points, I believe it's 8. Yeah, it's 8 offensive procs. It'll proc these, in this case, 267,857 hit points of damage every, 10 minutes. Next, I'm going to talk about some of the AAs that I've gotten above and beyond the auto grants, and why I've got them and why it influences how I run my Mage. The first one is that I'm going to talk about is Conjurer's Synergy. It's insanely expensive. I believe it starts out at 200 AAs for each level. It may increase towards the very end, I forget. But at the minimum, you're talking 2,800 AA points to max out Conjurer's Synergy, and maybe a little bit more, not a lot more. The reason we want Conjurer's Synergy is every time you cast your Swarm Pet, Raging Servant, it's going to bump up the next spell that you cast, and also the next spell that your entire group casts, by 105%. And if you've got mages and wizards in your group, or a beast lord, it's nice because it's your entire group, but it's yourself too. It's your personal DPS and a DPS. Well worth it. So that tells you you're going to want to cast Raging Servant as often as you can, because you want to proc your synergy if you have it. But even if you don't have synergy, Raging Servant does a lot of your damage. I would say for most mages, assuming you cast it as often as it's going to do the bulk of your damage is from Raging Servant alone. So you're going to want to get Hastened Raging Servant, because that's going to let you cast synergy more often. It's going to let you cast your Raging Servant more often. It means you're going to do more damage. And also Flames of Power, another one you want. Why? Because it impacts your chaotic line of spells, and that's one of the spells that's going to go into your rotation if you follow my advice and perhaps some of the advice in like the NOS raid guide for magicians, which is fantastic and actually kind of where I got a lot of my, it influenced and impacted a lot of my decisions on how to play a mage. So Flames of Power, Spear of Molten Shieldstone, these are just the focuses for the spells that you're going to be using, bumping up your damage. And then the final Storm of Many, that's critical. You want to get that up because that's the spell that does the most damage. It's your hardest hitting spell once you have plenty of pets in the line. And it's also a big bump, 110%, as opposed to, of course, Spear of Magma, which is 55%. Capricious Fire, that's going to increase your chaotic line by 55%. Destructive Fury, you know that. To the extent you can max that, you want to max that. So many AAs that you got to spend. Fury of Magic, of course you need that. I'm not saying there aren't other important AAs. I'm not even saying there aren't other as important AAs. I'm saying these are some of the AAs that you want to push as you're leveling your mage, getting, increasing his abilities. So let's talk about my spell rotation and how I set that up. So this line here, this hotbar, which I believe is hotbar number 3 on my Mage's setup, if you press the J key, it's going to trigger the next in line of these spells. If it's in between, if the spells are down at that moment because you've just cast, you're waiting for it to come back up, it'll hit Force of Elemental and Aureate Bane. It will also cast the Orb. It will not cast the 2 robes you see, and the reason is generally is that Orb is an item, and once you hit an item, that generally stops a mash line like this. Doesn't always. It's magic. Sometimes these robes might go off. And then because I don't need that many spaces for a mage mash line or most characters, K, it will do a different thing. In this case, it sets up a heal your pet. It'll do whatever happens to be up for healing your pet. So I can just hit K and do some quick heals and then go back to mashing J to do some damage. Again, this line, the way I do this is because I do this in all my characters. And as you know, I play a different, quite a variety of classes. Most classes, not all, but most. And so I've come up with a setup that can be overlaid for most of the classes, but it's not perfect for really any of the classes. If you're playing just one character, for instance, you're doing a mage, you're going to set up your mage differently than I set up mine, because you don't need to bow down to the needs of other classes. But let's start here. So the first button, the first one I hit J, is it's going to cast Raging Servant. The reason I do that first is I want to trigger my synergy, because I want to bump up my next spell. The second line is Twin Cast. If Twin Cast is up, it's going to trigger it. Why? More damage. I don't want to think about Twin Cast. This is not improved Twin Cast. This is the spell Twin Cast. So I hit Raging Servant. If Twin Cast is up, that goes. If it's not up, we go to Fusillade of Many. Fusillade of Many is chosen because that's generally my highest damage nuke. And I want the synergy to go off on the highest damage nuke. As you can see, if you have no pets on the hate list, then that's going to do 0 damage. If you have 1 or 2 pets, it's going to do nominal damage. Generally, very quickly, you're going to be in the 3 to 6 range, and if you're grouped with another mage or a necromancer or even a shaman or a shadow knight, etc., in other words, beast lord, in other words, almost any group, you're going to have more than 2 pets right off the bat. You're going to have at least 3. And you'll be surprised how often you hit that 7 or more pets when you start doing a lot of damage. But that's Fusel of Many at 50,000 is generally my biggest nuke. And I want it to go off when my synergy is procced. Everybody's synergy, the synergy hits the entire group. And generally in a rotation, mages, wizards, they're casting their biggest nuke first anyway. So this helps them too. Hopefully it's going to trigger their biggest synergy, their biggest nuke when their conjurer synergy goes off. I have Host the Elements. That gives you 3 pets right off the bat. So if you are in a situation where you're burning, you'll hit Host the Elements. Now you've got your pet. You've got 3 pets more, so now you have 4. You've got your swarm pet out there, so that's 5. And if anybody else has another pet, you'll be hitting 6 right off the bat, and soon 7. Chaotic Magma is the second nuke or the third nuke I cast. Third spell I cast. You've got Servant, then Of Many, and finally Chaotic. I cast that next to see if I can trigger Twin Cast or if I can refresh my Gather Zeal or other spells. Then my 4th spell is Spear of Molten Dacite. You could probably do that as your 3rd spell. I'm not 100% sure which is better, but I like Chaotic than Dacite. And finally, of course, the Molten Dacite Orb, which does good damage. It's well worth. You should be casting it. You should be automatically casting it. You should be refreshing it when necessary. But you don't want to be triggering Dacite Orb when you've just conjured your synergy, because it will use a charge. Force of Elements does not use a charge. Some people will take Dacite Orb out of their mash key or the line and put it on a like K or something just because they don't want to risk using up that synergy on a lesser spell. But it's still useful. Let's see. So this is a small inset to show the robe. Okay, I told you that the mash key does not generally trigger my robes. They're just there to give me a visual focus of have they been used. I have my number pad 9. That'd be one. That'd be my second hotbar. Towards the end, robe. It triggers both of those 2 robes. And I will generally use those fairly often because it's 5 and 10 minute refresh. You might as well give yourself that additional damage, that additional survivability to your pet. But if you are about to do a burn, you might save them for that. As I told you, K is to heal pets, and it'll cast my pet heal or whatever happens to be up in that order. It won't usually cast them all at once, but just anytime you hit K, something's going to be up. It's going to help your pet. Or you can do it manually. I do that sometimes. Now, how do you set up a mash line? You see the window selector. You choose the options, which is the gear button. And you go to the keys tab. And then whichever hotbar you want to be your mash bar, you go to hotbar 3 and whatever keys you want to use. Again, I use J. I've taken a lot of my keys, and there's a lot of old stuff that I don't use in EQ, like the customer service thing, and I take that away. But as I said, J, you notice that's red because it's used multiple times. It's going to just do whichever operate is first. So it's going to hit that first spell. If that's down, it'll go to the next spell. If that's down, it'll go to the next spell. That's how you get this rotation going through. And then I do K, and that is how I set up a multibind. Very useful, and it will definitely help your DPS to go with a multibind. So next we come to, I have a lot of spell sets. I have too many spell sets. But let's look at a couple. One, mini pets. I don't use those generally. I use those to off-tank mobs, and I'll show you how that works. Valiant Symbiosis, that ups your mana regeneration a little bit. Essentially, over 10 minutes, it's like 10,000 extra mana points. Not a lot, but it's extra mana. So if you want to do the administrative task of memming that or keeping that memmed and casting it every 10 minutes or 20 minutes or however it lasts, you can do that. Shield of Inescapability, pet toys, monster summoning. Monster summoning is our way to canny back mana quickly if we need to. Let's see. I have a couple of keys for, like, when I'm pulling, I'll hit the pulling key. That puts my pet on hold, and it puts my mercenary on passive so that I don't get aggro by accident. I have a shield key that if I start getting hit or drawing aggro, I can hit that, and whatever happens to be up first will go off and gives me a little additional. I don't use that much because either I'm too slow and I'm dead, or I just choose not to draw aggro. Use Arcane Whisper. A lot of people don't use it. It's certainly a good way to just lower your aggro to 1 real quick. When it comes to mana regeneration, some mages don't know, and I know it's not you, but some mages don't think about the fact that the Rod of Courageous Modulation is the spell shard, and Summon Modulation Shard is the AA, and you can use both and double your mana regen in that time. So the Rod is almost 40,000 mana, and the Summon Modulation Shard is 40,000 mana. Use them both, so that's, you have Valiant Symbiosis, you have the Rod of Courageous Modulation, you have the Modulation Shard, you also have Elemental Conversion that's going to give you mana. You want to use those in rotation, keep your mana up as much as you can. You're also going to get Gather Zeal. Right here, Gather Zeal. I recommend that you cast that when it's up, as long as you're down, 10-15% of your mana. Because you can't, if you're casting Chaotic Magma, it has a chance to refresh Gather Zeal, which will give you more mana. But if you haven't used it, if it's not down, you can't refresh it. Yeah, so we got, Valiant Symbiosis, Gather Zeal, your 2 Modulation Shards, and Elemental Conversion. Those are your basic bread and butter mana regen. Then you can also, if you have to, in between battles, go down to summoning monster pets and reclaiming energy that way, which is the next. Mem and Suspend. Mem's my spell set, monster summoning. Suspends my pet. You could do all this manually. This is just having fun. And then Reclaim Energy, you cast 14, summons a monster pet. Use Staff of Elemental Mastery, it reclaims it. Then you cast them, you summon the monster pet, then you use that again, and you're quickly regenerating your mana. Mage's Unity, usually you just cast that once and forget it, but if you're a situation where your pet is taking damage or pets are taking damage, then think about re-clicking that every 14 minutes so that the AA that allows your pets to get healed, because that only lasts for 14 minutes, you want to refresh that occasionally. See, this is, I talked about L and N. If I hit that, if I have an ad come up and I want to off tank it, I can hit the L and it will X target 2, cast my Raging Servant. Or if that is down because I'm already cast it, it'll throw a summoned Exigent Servant or summoned minion at it. And then it will go back to X target 1, which is my main target. So I'm hit X target 2, send a off tank there, back to my main target, so my J is doing damage. Sometimes I set up X target 3, and I'll show you how that works in a moment. Then finally I have E is my Call of Hero. I hit E, and it's going to summon whoever I'm targeting, and the rest is just administrative stuff. The next bar, Staunch Recovery, Shrink Companion, Velocity. If I've died, or it's the first thing of the day or something, this is my line to rebuff myself. And I've also got Tranquil Blessing, Mass Buff. This one here is my hotbar 8, I believe. Heal pets, fortify companions, shield, etc. Both the AA and the non-AA versions. So you have the AA companion shield and you have the spell companion shield. You have host in the shell and you have the spell version. They don't stack, but gives you more things if you're really wanting to keep your pet up. Second wind, don't use pet ID if you're tanking because you'll be summoned when your pet puts on invulnerability. But if you're not tanking, then that might be helpful because it gives you a little more time to save your pet. The other 3 are when I hit my burn key, this is just visual confirmation that they're down. And so that is my basic setup. Let's go back and just show you a little bit about how this might work. So here I've got my main target combat dummy. I hit J, servant goes off. I hit J again, twin cast goes off. I hit J again, and of many, which would take advantage of Conjurer's Synergy. Hit J again, it's Chaotic Magma. I'm hoping that it'll proc twin cast, but I already have twin cast up, so it doesn't matter. If I hit it in between, Force of Elements goes off. Obviously, Bane won't go off, and I can use up my orbs, but just hitting the J key, If I want to hit the robes, I hit number pad 8. Those are triggered. If I want to, my attack key, I want to, which also malaises, but I can independently maze. I can independently malaise everything. I can do burns while doing my, just start sending everything out there. Send the host of elements. Now, suddenly I've got X target 2. This is an add. It's unexpected. Well, then I can hit my L key, and you'll see how it goes over, and it sends a servant there. But what if my I get another add? This time it's combat dummy 3. I can hit the N key and send another servant, or if the servant's not available, it'll send one of my minions. But all the time I'm back on the combat dummy 1 doing nuking. The nice thing about X target, this is kind of weird. You can hit X target 1, then you can start casting a spell, then you can say send me back to 2. It will send you back to X target send you X target 2. It will send you back to X target 1 while you're casting the spell. You can't do that with the target command, but X target is kind of a cool little thing there. So that's how I set up my mage. Hopefully there's some advice in here that you'll find useful. You guys take care, and I will see you next video, and I will see my group on Thursday. Talk to you later.